Hello and welcome to BloombergQuint. My guest today is Tony Fountain, Chairman of Essar Oil India Limited. Tony, you're back into the Indian refining business after 4 or 5 years.
Thank you. It's after just a couple actually. It's great to be back having involvement in oil and gas, and great to be having involvement in India again. So thank you.
And you see the entire business been exciting now because crude is lower. You have higher GRMs going on for refining companies in India.
I think India is, it's the fastest growing energy market in the world, and so and I know this is the attraction of the investors into these assets. Actually, here you are, very rare to get a set of assets of this type of quality, both in terms of scale and complexity. Extraordinarily exciting actually, both because of their role within India and that market is growing, and because they're really well positioned to also play in the global market.
You spoke about scale. Okay, so let's come to the entire value, because it's one of the largest foreign investment by a Russian company and Russian company-led consortium into the Indian market. Of the $12.9 billion, can you give us a breakup of how much is debt and how much is equity?
Yeah, I can give you a reasonable assessment. I don't want to be overly prescriptive because, as you know, in any post-close-out deal, those numbers need to be finalised. But more or less, of the 12.9 billion, we've been working with the local banks and financial institutions to keep those on. So more or less 4 billion of debt and 1 billion of working capital would add to the total debt number out of the 12.9. Of the asset valuation that's being made.
This deal has been looked very closely by the bankers, by the street, primarily because of the kind of debt it has and how stressed the Indian banking system is, and a lot of exposure of domestic banks is into Essar Oil. Are you in touch with the lenders to refinance the loans or the long-term loans which are there, and if so, by when do you expect that to happen, or you plan to do a swap of the loan to get more dollar loan in?
So, this has been a complex negotiation. Clearly, as we're taking on the 5 billion of debt and working capital facilities, there have been very extensive discussions with those banks and financial institutions to make that happen. And we're very glad for the support we've had from them in order to do that. As you say, now that's a starting position. We will be looking to our new CEO, Mr. Anand, to come up with a plan of how that debt can be restructured and further optimised over the coming months, and that is one of our early priorities for the company.
What about scalability of this operation? You already articulated about scaling up your retail operations. What about the refining part of it? When do we see Rosneft-led consortium putting in more money into the Indian operation to scale it up?
So one of the real attractions from the investors to these assets is not only a set of commercial opportunities that they provide today, but the set of commercial opportunities that can be further developed for tomorrow. We don't want to prejudice any kind of decision making and start again really from a thorough basis of looking at that. So we've asked the management team and the new CEO to prepare us an asset development plan that looks at all the possible things that we can do around the refinery and the logistics and the port to help develop the opportunities and provide further attractive investments.
Now, you mentioned about in the conference about non-compete, brand licensing. Give us an idea of that non-compete agreement, of whether Essar promoters be allowed to set up their own facility, maybe not now because it takes time, but in the next few years.
So, in terms of so I think we need to distinguish between non-compete and branding license. So the retail site's branded as Essar. That's been a very successful brand in the retail space. And we will be looking to and have got a branding arrangement that will last an extremely long period of time.
True.
So that's a branding license issue. Non-compete. So there are non-compete clauses as part of the contractual arrangements, which are much shorter duration, much shorter duration. years rather than decades in terms of restrictions that it places on the Essar Group to re-enter the retail.
And you're
refinery.
compensating them for the non-compete?
It's just part of the contractual arrangements.
Okay, because it's a holistic deal of $12.9 billion.
Yeah, so
that's what.
Yeah.
Sourcing is one thing. When you first started off talks with Essar, it was a 10-year crude sourcing agreement which Rosneft spoke about.
I'm not Rosneft, by the way. So.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But is that deal on the table?
So in terms of, sourcing arrangements, we will look at sourcing. We will look at crude sources from every possible source of crude and supplier around the world to get the best slate. Probably, maybe the largest single source of value you can drive at a refinery is in terms of the crude slate. We hope there will be opportunities that come from Rosneft in terms of their crude access, but those will be assessed on an arm's length basis against any other source of crude, and our owners want us to operate this as an independent company to maximise the value of the assets that they've invested in.
You spoke about the fact that this deal is for $12.9 billion, but this deal is essentially between offshore entities of Essar and others, and so there is no requirement of a withholding tax from your end. Give me the reason why you think there is no withholding tax, because the asset is based out of India, though it's held through offshore entities.
So in terms of whether or not there should be withholding tax, the answer is that we haven't withheld tax, and that's because under everything we do in this transaction, we want to have the highest standards of governance. So we've taken the best possible professional advice that we could get on this, and given the structure of the deal and the entities involved, we have been advised that we should not do a withholding tax under this transaction, and that's why we
despite
have
several cases which have come in about the same thing. You saw this happening in Kane, you saw it happening in Vodafone, where withholding tax was not done, and there were a lot of issues with respect to that.
I can only say that we've taken the very best advice we've had, and on the basis of the advice and the nature of the entities that are involved, we have not withheld tax.
Tony, thank you for joining us on BloombergQuint. Thank you.
Thank you.